on the highest court in the land. Joining me now is Congressman Jared Moskowitz of Florida, former Republican Congressman Denver Riggleman, who served as a senior advisor to the January 6th Select Committee, and Paul Butler, former federal prosecutor and MSNBC legal analyst. I'm going to thank the member and former member of Congress and turn first to my friend here at the table, Paul Butler. Did I get anything wrong about Hunter Biden's prospects? Because he, like Donald Trump, is now a former felon.
That's exactly right. The president has made it clear that his son will have to follow all of the rules and procedures of everyone else who's convicted of a felony, unlike Donald Trump. Again, Donald Trump was convicted in a state system, not a federal system. But apparently, when he went for his interview with the probation officer, he wasn't required to take a drug test, which is required of everybody who's convicted of a crime in New York who's subject to probation. So different treatment for Donald Trump. The president's son, Hunter Biden, not being treated the same as everyone else, in many ways being treated worse. This crime that he's convicted of rarely prosecuted unless the gun was used for a violent crime. In this case, it wasn't.
Yeah.
He had it for 11 days. 10 out of those days, it was in a locked box. It was never loaded. Again, the reason that Hunter Biden is being prosecuted is because he's the son of the president.
I think that's clear, Jared Moskowitz, Congressman Moskowitz. It feels like the Justice Department and the Attorney General went out of their way to get out of the way of this prosecution, which was brought by a holdover from the Trump DOJ. And, you know, the president said he won't touch it. He said he's not going to pardon his son. And it seems that Merrick Garland let it go through. How can the Justice Department be weaponized against Trump when all of that is happening?
No, that's right, Joy. First, thanks for having me. No, we had a Republican prosecutor that was handling this case, right? This had nothing to do with Merrick Garland or Joe Biden. In fact, he's been found guilty, right? I mean, the idea that you now see my colleagues across the aisle trying to say this is all part of the plan, I mean, just sounds ridiculous. But there is something that did, or I should say did not happen, Joy, in this case. You didn't see members of Congress going to the courthouse, standing with Hunter, you know, in their Men's Warehouse suits, holding press conferences. No Democrat is called to defund the FBI or defund the DOJ. No Democrat is calling for civil war as a result. No, Democrats stand for the rule of law. Remember, law and order. You know, and we've been saying that Trump's not above the law, Hunter Biden's not above the law, no one is above the law. And it is amazing to see the stark contrast between how Democrats handled today and how Republicans handled this whole thing over the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the ugliness of it, the threats against even the jurors, trying to dox the jurors. It's a very different tone, Denver Riggleman. The other thing that I feel like is missing, and this is something that we've talked a little bit about on this show, and I think you're an especially important person to talk about it with, is just the lack of sort of decency on the Republican side here. Because you have, in the case of Hunter Biden, somebody who's obviously had deep troubles, problems with drugs, problems in his life. He comes from a background that's full of tragedy. And yet here's his family surrounding him with love. President Biden's statement is actually quite kind, and it's very fatherly and sweet. He says, as I said last week, I'm the president, but I'm also a dad. Jill and I love our son, and we are so proud of the man he is today. So many families who have loved ones battle addiction understand the feeling of pride, seeing someone you love come out on the other side and be so strong and resilient in recovery. As I said last week, I will accept the outcome of this case and will continue to respect the judicial process as Hunter considers an appeal. Jill and I will always be there for Hunter and the rest of our family with our love and support. Nothing will ever change that. I can't even imagine Donald Trump saying that about any of his children, his family. That is actually loving your kid. And I don't understand why Republicans don't even have compassion for that.
I don't either. And I think what's so damaging about it is that the first thing is that they have the conspiracy theories coming out. Jared already talked about it, right? And, you know, Jared's going to probably be horrified by this, but I do shop at Men's Warehouse sometimes. And the other thing, too, about this that's sort of nuts, right, is the awfulness about addiction. You know, I was in Congress when I lost my cousin 2 blocks away to an overdose. I've had 2 very close family members die, you know, transient drug use, but also doing some, you know, just some awful things, you know, when it comes to drugs. And I remember, you know, if you're there watching somebody die, or you're there and you get the phone call that somebody dies from addiction, that is absolutely brutal. And the fact that people are treating Hunter like this, I think really speaks to what the far right is doing. But the other thing that's even just as bad is this conspiracy theories coming out, and I think Jared actually alluded to it, that the guilty trial or the guilty verdict for Hunter was actually a fig leaf to actually cover up the real crimes of Joe Biden, Hunter Biden, which is on its face completely ludicrous. And by the way, Joy, I don't know if you know this, you're part of the corporate globalist media that's actually coordinating with the Biden campaign. I'm just letting you know what's happening out there.
Yeah.
That you're like, that Joe Biden's the embodiment of the rule of law. No, he's actually, this is a conspiracy, and the Hunter Biden guilty verdict was actually part of the plan all along. This is insane. It's just incredible that we're going through this right now in our American system.
It's pathetic. And to that point, let's play Tom Cotton. When the word pathetic comes up, generally, somehow, for whatever reason, I think of him. Here's Tom Cotton giving that very conspiracy theory life.
If he was weaponizing the Justice Department, wouldn't he want to keep any case away from his own son?
He was forced, his own Justice Department tried to rig a settlement. They were forced by a judge asking questions of the prosecutor and Hunter Biden's defense attorneys.
But wouldn't he get rid of it completely? Why would he weaponize it against his own son and just get rid of the case altogether, by your argument?
Well, because he's going to pardon his own son after the election. And that's what you should ask Joe Biden at the White House sometime is, do you commit to not pardon Hunter Biden
so let me
after
go back
the election?
Will you accept the jury's outcome, their verdict, no matter what it is?
Yes.
And have you ruled out a pardon for your son?
Yes.
You've got that, Congressman. You've got Elise Stefanik saying the facts are clear. This was a zombie case illegally brought forward by a corrupt prosecutor during Joe Biden's from the start, the weaponized case. Like, they're going out of their way, Congressman Moskowitz, to pretend that a guilty verdict in a case that would have never been brought if his last name wasn't Biden is a conspiracy, as Denver Riggleman said.
Yeah, no, the Republicans don't know which Joe Biden they want to sell to the American people. Right at the beginning of the week, it's Joe Biden's got dementia. And by the end of the week, it's Joe Biden is an international super mastermind with his son Hunter, along with Merrick Garland. And they're pulling all of the strings at the Justice Department to try to put Hunter Biden in jail as a secret plot to win the election, because that's how good Joe Biden is. I mean, this is the lunacy we have to deal with here in Congress, right? It's completely disjointed and out of touch with the American people, which is why, quite frankly, the American people don't care about this Hunter Biden thing. Even though I have to sit day in and day out in these hearings and oversight committee and listen to them parading witnesses, right? Some of them, you know, dealing with folks that, you know, worked as a foreign agent for China, or were, you know, some witnesses that were indicted by the Department of Justice. This is what James Comer has tried to sell to the American people on this committee. And so, look, the 118th Congress has been a mess. Unfortunately, they've used Hunter as a way to try to hurt Joe Biden. It has not worked. But obviously, look, I feel bad for Hunter Biden. He's someone, obviously, who suffered from mental illness. He's going to have to deal with the mistakes that he's made in his life. But Joe Biden is a dad, and Joe Biden has said, look, I'm the president, but I'm also Hunter Biden's father. In fact, quite frankly, I think through all the hearings that we've had and all the money Republicans have spent on Hunter Biden, I think the only thing they've proven, quite frankly, is that Hunter Biden is the son of Joe